Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? The last thing I wanted to do this week is speak about the fires and the losses this city is dealing with. But 1 week after my wife's message, which is 5 days after the fires began, they're still burning. And a few nights ago, an arson burned our car down to the ground. So I wanted to share some thoughts and add some perspective, because if our views do not change, we will keep seeing the same results. We live next to a firehouse, and these have been the quietest nights in downtown LA because all the fire trucks have gone to the fire zones and have not returned. I'm a light sleeper, and I've been woken up by my son's wheezling in the next room, clearing his throat a little bit, just because of the time that we've spent outside. Until this week, our family had lost nothing but some sleep and maybe a few days of life due to the poor air quality. Yet we have to keep fighting back the tears. Now, I'm personally not overly attached to anything besides our family and to hope. And hope resides in the future. So I have to keep my family looking forwards. But in the present, our heart breaks for almost 30 people now that have lost their lives, and thousands of people having to see their possessions and their life's efforts just burn up right before their eyes. We're approaching like $300 billion in damages. Yet simultaneously, we're also inspired by the service of the LAFD and the neighboring fire departments, the inmates that have loaned support to these firefighters fighting these fires, and all the inspirational stories of great valor of all the citizens and communities of people coming through for people. I'm so proud of our fearless church. That's the name of the church, actually. Their relentless service to the city around the clock since the beginning of the blaze. If you ever wondered what a church should look like, look no further. Pastor Christy and Jeremy Johnson and the whole team live by these mantras that a scared world needs a fearless church, and that they're going to love on people until they ask why. It has been difficult processing this crisis as a husband, as a business owner, but my greatest challenge has been as a father with our son Lion. It's heartbreaking to see him brought to tears, witnessing a burned down car and seeing parts of our favorite places in Malibu just in ruins. So I wanted to restore some regularity to his days, and I brought him to the Redondo Beach skate park. But the beach air was a little thicker than normal, and the occasional ashes coming down rained on you like snowflakes. And it's a reminder of the unavoidable truth that we have to face. It is inevitable. If we don't change our ways, we're going to keep receiving the same results, or even worse. The leadership in this state and city has continued to outdo itself in failures, and I'm asking myself and you, will this be the one that snaps everyone out of their fields, opinions of supporting these unqualified people just because of partisan or perverse preferences? Fire trucks and planes have been turned away from supporting the efforts to stop these fires because of emissions. What about the emissions of our burning city? Over 100 million gallon reservoir was let go dry before fire season. No reservoirs were added to protect people in order to protect a smelt fish. Well, now it's just a big fish fry. Fire budgets were cut and reissued to ridiculous other initiatives when it's a yearly fight for decades with no clear resolution that we have to deal with these fires. Insurances dropped customers in crucial areas days before the fire. Wooden telephone poles were stopped from being replaced with steel ones to protect some shrubs, the same shrubs that propelled the fires. Coincidentally, a lot of the trail the fires has burned down aligns with the plans for 2028 smart cities, but I'm not going to go down a conspiracy hole right now. Certain people just seem to want us to leave, even though we pay the highest taxes in our country, and yet it seems to not be enough. I didn't move to California because of policies. I moved here because of people and places. Lion and Tanya, caught me crying the other night. As I reset our space between events, I thought that I had a moment to myself and they had gone upstairs and I just needed the release. They came and hugged me and we wept as a family for our beloved city. But our tears and prayers without actions will not be enough. But where is God in all this? Let me take a few steps back before I answer. The majority of Hollywood's humble beginnings were the Jewish people who couldn't get film careers, starting their own thing with silent films to live out their dreams and to do right by their people. But it's safe to say without good leadership or godly values, just like Israel in the Bible, many of their goals and people have gone astray, to say the least, in the last generations that followed. So with the years of scandal ranging from casting couches to producing more pornography than anywhere in the world, rumors of child trafficking, and the constant push to normalize perversion, it's easy to see how Los Angeles could be compared to Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. But what can we learn from that story? In that story, God himself sends two angels to visit Abraham and Lot and to let them know that Sodom and Gomorrah have turned away from him and are so evil, those cities are going to be wiped out. Abraham had a nephew named Lot who lived in the area, so he pleaded with God that if even there was a few good people in those cities, would he not spare them? In Genesis 18:23, Abram asked God, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked?" God bless his heart. But I need to bring to attention that there is only one righteous person in this equation, and it's God himself. But Abraham is so hopeful, he begs for the mercy that if there's even 50 good people, will you not spare the city? After some thought, reality hits and he pleads with God from 50 to 40 to 30 to 20 to 10. Like Abraham, we need to fight for the unrighteous, even if we have our own problems and disagreements with them. And together, we need to grow closer to God's call for our lives. God, knowing we are not worthy and even incapable of being worthy without him, he is still for us. And he says he will have grace for the city if there's even one righteous person. Knowing that the only good people were Abraham's family, he decides to spare Lot and his family. So God sends these two angels to guide Lot and his family outside the city. The angels were facing political persecution, the neighborhood's persecution, and an angry mob wanted to rape the angels as punishment. In hopes of mediating the situation, Lot offers up his daughters to the mob instead of them having to rape the angels. Take my daughters. Does this level of perversion being normalized sound like any city you might know? This mob trying to stifle God's will in his name, sex being used for leverage and even extortion or punishment? The angels blind everyone outside the city and tell Lot to grab his family that he wishes to save and to follow them outside the city because of the rest of the city needs to be destroyed. Lot's son-in-laws laughed at him and stayed behind, but his daughters and his wife followed him, and the angels took them to a neighboring city. They were given one command, not to look back at Sodom and Gomorrah. Then burning sulfur fell from the sky and rained all over the city, and the homes and the people were burned to ruins. And then Lot's wife violated, and she looked back and immediately was turned into a pillar of salt for once again disobeying God. Lot and his wife were called to be salt in a city, not salty. In our family, we say we need to call each other up, not out. We can't look back at our evil ways. We need to look forward to better days. God calls us to become our greatest selves alongside him and his wishes, But too often we rebel and we think we know better and put our focus on our past instead of our faith in the future. Even after all this, Abraham is once again challenged by God as he asks him to sacrifice their son Isaac. And right before Abraham killed his son with a knife on an altar, angels stopped Abraham because God knew that Abraham was trustworthy. What would you sacrifice for your relationship with God? Are you trustworthy? You cannot use someone else's altar to get right between you and God. We need to consecrate, to dedicate ourselves as individuals and as a people back to God. Because of Abraham's faithfulness, God says that his descendants will be as great as the stars in heaven, and all the families in the world will be blessed by you. We are seeing these generational challenges here, but without God, they could easily be interpreted as generational curses. How many generations of godless behavior may we be witnessing the results right now in our city in Los Angeles? God knew Abraham was a trustworthy leader because he was consecrated to God's will. He left the debaucherous ways of Sodom and Gomorrah. He did not look back. He put God first and his family next. He looked forward with hope. When Sodom and Gomorrah was turned to ashes, God used Abraham to build the future generations. Although we may think we're more righteous than the next person, our taxes fund what takes place in the city. So that means we all facilitate what goes on in it. We need to do better. What does God want to build with you? We need to believe that God did not cause these fires because we've all fallen short. So it would be all of us burning down and we would all be gone. Although they have attempted to hijack the rainbow is a reminder that God promised us in the Bible that he will never wipe us out again. But God may allow bad things to take place and bring good out of them. God sent Jesus to save people's lives, not to take them out. We need God-fearing leadership to rebuild this city and our spirits. The greatest skyscrapers in this world were built out of a foundation of rubble. Nothing gets torn down to build something smaller or worse. We tear things down to put something better and more beautiful in its place. We can look back and be salty, or we can look forward and see his beauty. In the scriptures in Romans 8:28, it says, we know that for all those who love God, all things work together for the good, for those who are called according to his purpose. God takes a tragedy and can use all things for the good of those who love him. When have you seen a masterpiece built with one material? The same painting needs wood for a frame, fabric for the canvas, paint, brushes, hands, and a vision to create it. A building needs rocks and mortar, cement, steel, wires, glass, water, and fire, and people to come together to accomplish its construction. God is calling us together. All races, all views, all classes of people. We are like those different materials that need to come together to rebuild this city, to rebuild his masterpiece, which is the humanity he envisioned of all of us together in the first place. Our hearts should be breaking for this city. We should be doing everything we can for our people. But this is going to take leadership to rise up. The height of your leadership is only as deep as your accountability. We have endured years of poor leadership, and it has to stop now. The ultimate display of leadership is when we see God send his son Jesus to hold the ultimate accountability and bear all of our sins, past, present, and future, although he was sinless. When a team fails, it's ultimately the leader that needs to take accountability. God created us, so it is Him who is ultimately accountable, and He sends Jesus as the answer. Our city leaders need to accept accountability for their failures. Our state's leaders need to accept accountability for our city's leader. Our country's leader needs to accept accountability for the state's leader. And all need to know that they will be held accountable by God and should be held accountable by God's people. Romans 12:21 says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." We have the ability to make earth a hellhole or to pull down heaven down to earth with our actions, our prayers, and God's power. I pray for God's strength over the good ones to overcome these battles, over the bad ones to be able to see the light, and that we all can be refilled with hope, and that a supernatural rain would stop these fires and rinse our souls. Our treasure is not our possessions, it is in each other. Our stay here is temporary. Our permanent residence is in the kingdom. So let's keep building the kingdom and watch how all our surroundings improve. Until next week, let's love more, and I'll see you at the next PSA. Tough times have shown me that sometimes I don't need to be stronger. I just need to find a stronger source. I hope these words brought you some inspiration and some strength. We're praying for our city. We're praying for everyone watching our city. We have some more messages here if you want to fuel up with some more hope. We love you guys, and we love you, LA.